Gabri Selassie, Radcliffe, Kipchoge. What do they all have in common? That's right, lightweights. These so-called professionals can barely run for 2 hours before giving up. In the case of Kipchoge, he's ready for bed before the 2-hour mark. Professional sport, it has its place, but for those in the know, the real entertainment happens each year in a field in Grantham in late September. For those that don't know, Equinox 24 is an annual running event. The goal is simple: run as far as you can in 24 hours, as a large team, small team, pair, or as a solo. All ability levels are welcome, from the sprinters to the crawlers. The near 10k loop is set around the grounds of Belvoir Castle in Grantham and provides a stunning backdrop to a weekend of running. My first appearance at the event was way back in 2015. 2023 marked the 8th outing at the event. It doesn't matter how much my legs hurt at the end of it all, I always seem to keep coming back for more. 2023 was a year I was setting out on a mission for a personal best. As an added bonus to the participation medals, there are pins to be won for certain lap milestones. Bronze for 10 laps, silver for 15, and gold for the near impossible 20 laps. My track record at the event has been reasonably stable over the past 7 years. I've never failed to achieve 10 laps, and on 3 occasions managed the silver pin for 15 laps, each time being utterly exhausted by the end of the event. This year I was focused on achieving 15 laps for a 4th silver pin. So far my record had been 3 out of 7, so 42%, each time only achieving the 15th lap via the one more lap rule. Basically, if you can start your last lap before midday on the Sunday, you are allowed to finish it. Having never wrapped up the 15 laps within the 24 hours, it's always been a minor stain on my record. 2023 was very much the year I wanted to end the reliance on the bonus lap. This was also potentially going to be the year I hit 100 laps at the event in total, having amassed 90 laps to date at the event. I won't be the first to achieve this, but there are certainly only a small number that have. Whilst not everyone finds setting goals useful, I do find that it helps to give me something to aim for. Here are how mine typically work. 1. Get round 1 lap safely to claim the participation medal. If you can do that without injury, all the better. 2. Marathon distance around 4 laps and a bit. 3. 50 kilometres at 5 laps. 4. Double marathon distance at around 8.5 laps. 5. 100 kilometres at 10 laps and a bronze pin. 6. Triple marathon distance at around 12.5 laps. 7. 150 kilometres at 15 laps for the silver pin. 8. A super stretch goal of 16 laps. Your goals and expectations may be different for the weekend, but I do find it is useful to set them all the same. More on my race later, but now time for some sights and sounds of the event. Friday, as ever, is setting up day. The event stalls are open and the atmosphere is incredibly relaxed this year. Race packs can be picked up via the Race HQ tent, and the envelope includes your race number with timing chip and also a rather nifty patch for solo runners. Pop next door and also pick up your race shirt. As you wander around the central event area, you can really get a good impression of how calm the pre-race day is. Just people enjoying themselves and meeting up with old friends. The central area contains a multitude of food vendors, clothing suppliers and general camping gear. Let's have a wander around. As evening falls, I find myself alone on the top deck of the beer bus. The crowds are building now, and the Equinox 24 weekend is very much underway. In a world where mass gatherings tend to either mean a riot or a Black Friday sale, it really makes you appreciate how well behaved the Equinox 24 crowd are. Good old-fashioned fun in the age of technology. Turns out all you need is a field and a band to keep runners amused. As night falls, the mood of the campsite remains cheerful. Friends chat as the Detroits play on. Of course, there's one more thing that's needed for the Friday night. The beer run. The rules state that you must down a drink and then run one lap of the field. I remember filming this event back in 2016. There were perhaps a couple of dozen runners taking part at most. Fast forward to 2023, and it's almost unbelievable to see how this particular element of the Equinox 24 weekend has developed. The volumes of participants have exploded, as have the crowds that come to see the event, all whilst maintaining its good humour. This is how you scale an event but keep the spirit of the weekend. It's a huge testament to the race organisation, and perhaps also a window of insight into the raging alcoholism of runners. Participants adorn all varieties of fancy dress, and a good time is had by all. I don't know what to tell you, it's something you just have to see for yourself. There are, of course, prizes for the winners. For some, it's just another standard Friday night out. But enough of this nonsense, it's my bedtime. As always, I'm up early on the Saturday morning. I love camping, but I can't honestly say that I slept well. The anticipation of race day very much on my mind. And what a day! It's slightly chilly and, as you can see, just a bit damp. And when I say damp, I really mean typical camping weather damp. As most of the runners sleep, the solo camping area is a virtual ghost town at this early hour. Let's hope that the weather picks up, otherwise these conditions could make the race very interesting, to say the least. I find myself wandering around, and before I know it, I'm in that reoccurring dream where I'm stuck in a never-ending labyrinth of portaloos. Only the hardiest of runners are up at this hour. This is very much the calm before the storm. A few runners congregate at the pop-top kitchen. A pirate eats his bacon roll. You have to admire his commitment to the costume even at this early hour. As the runners slowly emerge, the course awaits. Before the main event, the Equinoxes of the future have their chance to shine in the children's race. My 3-year-old loves this event, and it's very much a talking point in our household. From her first few steps at last year's event, she's been hooked, which is good because there will be a day when I need a replacement for the main event. As with the beer run, the children's race seems to grow each year. The course is roughly 1 kilometre around the campsite and well worth a watch. Some of the juniors really do sprint the whole lap, but there's plenty of room for those just wanting the experience of taking part. And yes, lots of children really do give this 100% effort.
Yeah, our first dog is over the line now as well. Oh, this young man's collapsed.
He was okay.
Great. Oh, that's a great finish from the fancy dress outfit. Excellent. Look at these finishes. Absolutely amazing, kids. Great efforts. Excellent.
My daughter was delighted as always to finish and proud of her medal. Drinks are also on hand at the end of the lap.
Well done!
The odd carrying. All the way, you're nearly there. Oh, that's the way.
The main event begins with race organiser Johnny giving the runners a thorough briefing. Before you know it, the runners are heading down towards the start pen. By my watch, it was about 23 to 24 degrees. Despite the cloud cover, there was a definite sense of rising humidity down on the start line. With the countdown underway, Equinox 24 2023 was upon us.
Giving them a round of applause. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Equinox! Go smash it! Absolutely awesome! You are all amazing!
Despite the crowds, I was at the start line in just under 43 seconds this year. And this was from a starting position fairly near the middle of the pack.
Absolutely brilliant, guys and girls and whatevers, you know. Well done, everybody. Val the squirrel, enjoy your run.
So, here we are, the Equinox 24 course. 10 kilometres of undulating terrain and beautiful scenery. Let's have a tour of the lap. For the teams, pairs, solos and the day 10k race, there's a mass start. The race begins with a starting straight and a gentle left turn. This will lead you out of the camping field and take you towards the crossroads. This is a marshal point and there are also portaloos should you need them. Next up is a sweeping right-hander. And if you've made it this far, congratulations, you've made it to the 1k mark. Take in the sights and sounds of Laughing Duck Lake on your right and carry on up the hill. There is a sweeping left-hander at the top of this section, and this will lead you onto a rather rugged section. In some years, this is a bit of an ankle risk. I do advise you leave it to at least lap 2 until you break an ankle though. This is shortly followed by the left-hander, and you're now at 2 kilometers. This is a decent downhill stretch on the grass, so you may be inclined to pick up a bit of speed here. After this section, you'll find a left-hander onto the concrete runway. This concrete section is around 2/3 of a kilometre and very straight. This is an ideal section for teams to put in some speed. We're now at the 3k mark. Before you know it, you're back at the crossroads and you'll take a right-hander down into the wooded area. It's not long before you reach the 4k marker and the bridge. The first real challenge of the course comes next though, in the way of not that hill. It's 2 kilometres of sustained light to medium climb. You'll pass a friendly marshal point before reaching the 5k mark and halfway of the course. Not long to go and you'll find yourself at the next water station, often known as the disco by night. There's portaloos for your convenience, and this is often where the medics are based. Worth remembering if you're like me. Next is where the real fun starts, kilometre 6. You'll first traverse down that hill, absolutely wrecking your quads as you do so. But things only get worse as you make it to that hill, the steepest climb on the course and the most feared segment. Just for fun, there's also a hill climb challenge at the top. By now you'll be seeing stars and feel the shudders of excitement running down your left arm as you make it to the top. Not far to go and you're on to kilometre 7. As a fun fact, if you're on this section at twilight, you'll quite often see bats flying around. It also provides the best view of the camping ground and Belvoir Castle in the background. From here you'll meet back up with the main path. Take a right at the Marshall station into the little field. Again, I'd cite this as a potential twisted ankle hotspot. Several times I've been caught out over the years. You'll be running on a straight grass path here and you'll make it to kilometre 8. Back over the bridge, through the wooded area and back up to the crossroads. You're now on to the last 2 right-handers of the course, and this will bring you into the main camping field and kilometre number 9. From here you'll experience all the sights and smells of the camping field. It's an indefinable smell of donuts, fried food and sweaty morph suits. You're now on to the last 2 sweeping left-handers of the course, and before you know it, you're back home. Congratulations, you've just completed 1 lap of Equinox 24. Just 19 more of these and you can go home with a gold pin. This year I had come with a revised strategy. Last year, my pacing at the event was all over the place. I was running, then walking, then trying to make up time. In short, it was a mess. This was despite the best laid plans. The pace of laps 1 and 2 had been too fast, so there was something to work on in training for this year's race. I did publicly promise to fix this though in last year's event video. Last year, I completed lap 15 at 12:50. This was a personal best time. However, I was well off the pace to make it onto the bonus lap for 16. If I was to make it up to the rank of 16 laps, I would need to find another 50 minutes of time from somewhere to make sure I crossed the line before midday. By trade, I'm an analyst, so I spent a huge amount of time crunching the numbers from the past 7 years. A couple of insights came to light. Firstly, I seemed to fade badly in the last third of the race. 2017 and 2022 both highlighted that I simply get slower over time. 2018 bucking the trend with fast laps on 13 and 14. However, this was vital as the time for my middle stages were very slow that year. I knew this year I had to mentally prepare for a gruelling last third if I was to even have a shot at the 16 laps. This would be the most challenging element of my race to improve. The second insight was with some practice I can still hold up to some relatively fast early laps if I prepare for it. I'm still a sub 45 10k runner at my home race of Norwich, which features at least one significant hill. In the warm-up to Equinox 24, I put special attention into fast training sessions. The idea being to stack the first half of the race. I need to balance this carefully with conserving energy though. This is absolutely not the recommended way to run distance races. Traditionally speaking, negative splits have always provided better results. But I'm still a bit stubborn, and I just know that my last third will never be as fast as my first third. Thirdly were my break times. I can lose anywhere up to 5 minutes by stopping to grab food and drink at the end of most laps. I couldn't really cut this down too much, other than being mindful of shaving off a few seconds here and there. After all, an extra 30 seconds of moving on 15 laps is 7 minutes 30 in the bag for free. Again, this would have to be balanced with the need to physically take on food, hydrate and change gear. There's also the option of not running with the Yoda backpack. Due to tradition though, that was off the table. So that was the plan. I needed to shave 50 minutes off my personal best to get a shot at that elusive 16th lap. Over the course of 24 hours it sounds easy, but when you've already maxed out your abilities and end a race on the floor like this, a 50-minute reduction is no mean feat. I'm certainly moving with purpose early on. Lap 1 was always planned to be fast. And indeed it was. I was over the line in 56 minutes and 2 seconds, shaving 26 seconds off my personal best lap at the event. Despite the lingering haze, the course was most definitely warming up. Time for a brief refuel and then it's straight back out. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I was in 12th position in the men's race. Positions at the end of lap 1 often mean very little though, with 23 hours to go. "2023 was always going to be an interesting year in regards to the top spots. In the men's race, the podium positions were wide open for the taking. Last year's winner, Matthew Coulson, didn't return this year. Last year's second place, Chris Sperling, was also a non-runner. And last year's third place, Mike Reed, had now switched into a team entry. For the first time in a long time, none of the podium positions would be defended in the men's race. What an opportunity for someone to take advantage of. Could this be the year of the Morph Man? No it wasn't, but we can always hope. The women's race was the polar opposite. It was an all-star cast of returning talent. Last year's winner and course record holder, Katie Turner, would return. 2022's second place, Karen Wickens, would also return. As would last year's third place, Helen Duncan. Last year's fourth place, Vicky Linfoot, would be looking to go one better to get on the podium. There was also the pleasant news that 2021 winner Alison Wong would make her return after missing last year's event. There were also several other familiar ultra-running faces in the mix, making this year's lineup a force to be reckoned with. Whilst not everyone's training had gone to plan, and not all would be competing with high expectations, at least on paper, this was the race lineup of the decade. Out on course, things were hotting up by lap 2. By my watch data, temperatures were now topping out at 28 to 29 degrees. That hill was as relentless as ever, and even at this early stage I was having a few knee issues. With the sun peaking towards the end of my second lap, I decided on a few minutes out to refuel under a towel. Despite a rather speedy 1 hour and 3 minutes second lap, I was now 1 minute 41 down on last year's race. Nothing to worry about at this stage of course, but I now needed to make up 52 minutes somewhere if I was able to complete the 15 laps within the 24-hour cutoff. I'd also dropped 11 positions to 23 in the men's race. Even for the regulars, Equinox 24 is a real mental challenge. Still rather hot and sweaty, I decided that a march with some sweets was the best option whilst I took stock of the task ahead. I don't know if it's my perception, but I always seem to think that the other runners are moving a little more freely than I am at this stage. I'd set out my plan though, and I was going to stick to it. Consistency and a relatively fast third of the race was the game plan. By lap 3, the tide was turning, as I now finished the lap a whopping 2 seconds ahead of last year's PB. I still had 50 minutes to find out on course if I was to have a shot at the 16 laps, but I was at least still on track for a 4th silver pin at this stage. Despite my best efforts, I'd now dropped to 40th position. Equinox 24 is about the long game though. Anything can happen. It's perhaps worth mentioning that the course itself was practically unchanged from the 2022 edition. The only noticeable changes being the bend on the concrete path at around 2.5 kilometres now staying on the grass, rather than the option of the road. There's also now the spectacle of the log pile just after the water station. That hill, still there though. For those of you that don't know, that hill is just awful. How awful? Well, it's Kathy Bates in Misery awful.
It's for the best.
Whilst I am classed as a solo runner, I very much rely on my pit team. My daughter dispenses high fives whilst my wife arranges the food and drink. Mum's responsible for the towel. With a light breeze to cool the runners, I find a second wind and leave at a consistent pace. Around the race HQ, the runners and spectators enjoy the time away from the course. Out on the course itself, the race rumbles on. so you may be thinking that 24 hours of running may not be for you. But that's okay, as Equinox 24 have you covered by the way of a day 10k and a night 10k. If you're looking to run a single lap of the race, then these options are ideal. And yes, you do get medals for each. You can also double up on medals by entering the 24-hour race and the 10k races, but you must display both race numbers as you run. Overnight, both the men and women's races have been fascinating. In the men's race, we were watching the drama unfold over the hours. It was clear that something very special was happening in terms of times. The leaders were simply outstanding as they lapped most of the field time and time again. Records don't fall easily these days at Equinox 24, but this year there were multiple runners chasing the record. The women's race too was becoming a memorable encounter. The lead was changing hands like currency, as no less than 4 women held the lead of the race in the first 8 laps. By lap 8 though, Helen Duncan had hit the front. This was a repeat of 2022 all over again for the top 4, albeit in a different order. The race rumbles on into the night, runners now regretting their life choices as supporters check out the live results. Of course, there's still plenty of food to be had. By evening, the night 10k is about to kick off. You can very much hear the cheers from out on the course. It's only a matter of time before a herd of fresh-legged runners will be stampeding past you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you remember to give those 24-hour runners plenty of space, have fun out there. Enjoy the views of the castle from the top of the estate. It is beautiful.
As night falls, the runners and spectators get settled in for a long wait until sunrise. By 2 AM I had hit a major milestone, 10 laps, taking me to 100 laps in total at the event. There was no time for celebration though, as there was still much work to be done. At this stage I'm feeling reasonably confident, although I have to admit this doesn't look like the face of someone who has his race plan under control. So what of the race? Yes, Equinox 24 is technically a race, although you'd be hard pushed to find many participants that see themselves as competitors for the top spots. By lap 5 it was clear that something very special indeed was happening. With Jonathan Tyndall, Ben Ashton and Andrew Churchill leading the pack, the competition was as fierce as it gets. Tyndall had smashed out a 52-minute lap, followed by a 51, 50, 53 and a 57. In no uncertain terms, this was an unprecedented start to the men's race. Until lap 10 it was Tyndall dominating the race. That was until Andrew Churchill took the lead. Churchill's lap 10, a mere 1 hour and 9 minutes. But he was getting faster. His lap 12 was just 1 hour and 7 minutes. From lap 10 out, it was a duel between Churchill and Tyndall. There were ripples of excitement on the course itself. Each time they passed us, the excitement rose. The men's race was either going to end in a blowout or a record. Both men now going past 20 laps to achieve the gold pin. But Andrew Churchill wasn't done. His 21st lap was completed in just 1 hour and 4 minutes. He was getting faster. Tyndall retired on an astonishing 21 laps. In most years this would have been a clear win. Only beaten by the dominance of Andrew Churchill, who went on to complete a record-breaking 22 laps of the course. As a frightening stat, he was only 5 minutes and 21 seconds away from being able to start his next lap. Overall, an absolutely fascinating race, resulting in 2 gold pins. A new year, a new record. The men's race had been an absolute belter. But what of the women's race? Was it going to live up to the hype? This was after all the year of returning champions. Could anyone take a double win for the first time? Early on, we saw Rebecca Heading and Vicky Linfoot vying for the top spot over the 30k distance. Defending champion Katie Turner was looming ominously in 4th place by marathon distance. It was Vicky leading the way, although Helen Duncan leapfrogging from 6th to 3rd place on lap 5. Then up to the silver medal spot on lap 6. Helen Duncan hit the top spot on lap 8, but the race was far from over. Unlike the men's race, the top 3 spots were in constant flux. It was a constant shuffle of experienced runners at the top. By lap 10, 2022's 4th place finisher Vicky Linfoot had been dropped to 4th place once more. The top 5 now cementing a little until lap 17, when Linfoot was able to claw her way back into a medal position and ultimately secure bronze position with 17 laps. But who was going to take the women's crown this year? It was 2022's 2nd place Karen Wickens versus 2022's 3rd place Helen Duncan. The women's race was truly living up to its billing. Both completed their 19th lap, before Helen Duncan broke the deadlock with a stunning 20th lap. The first woman in Equinox 24 history to achieve the gold pin with a new course record. What a race this had been. By morning, I was still sticking to my plan. By lap 9, I was 21 minutes ahead of my PB from last year. Time was running out to make up another 29 minutes to hit the lap cutoff to make it onto the bonus 1 more lap. By lap 13, my time cushion had been eroded and I was actually 36 seconds behind last year. I clearly wasn't the only one suffering, as by stubbornness alone, I was now in 15th position, as the leaders had been slowly whittled down by the exertion of the night stage. Even in the dying laps though, I knew that the plan could still come together. Provided that I didn't implode, I would have a shot at beating my previous 15th lap by a long way. It would be tight, but then again, it was always going to be. As the morning broke, it was time for runners to make a last effort to go as far as they could. My speed was diminishing quickly now, but mentally I was doing all I could to hit the midday cut-off time. I'd already hit a cumulative total of over 100 laps at Equinox 24 now in all events. There had been quite a bit of expectation, and even during the race several runners had run with me and shook my hand. Now determined to set a PB, it was time to grind out the last few laps. At 11:37 and 24 seconds, with just 22 minutes 36 seconds to go, I crossed the start line to complete my 15th lap. This was now uncharted territory. I'd always said that if I had the opportunity to complete a 16th, I would. And this is what the end of 160 kilometres looks like. It's not glamorous, but it is a unique feeling. My legs were like jelly, but I did make it round for a new PB of 16 laps and overall 12th position in the men's race.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see, a hobbler. Yeah, I can tell he's worked hard. I can tell he's in pain. I think Richard Stanley's just finished behind us. Richard's one of our legends. If you've not seen some of Richard's YouTube videos, you need to look it up. Love you, Rich.
Some finish with a flourish. Some with a limp.
Sports Massage Academy. They did some work, they strapped up her knee so Louise could go out. She managed to get out and do that one more lap that she wanted to do. Well done, Louise, absolutely phenomenal.
Some with family.
Excellent work, Vicky. Vicky and my baby, yeah! That is awesome.
But they all finish with a smile. So, was 2023 the year of overachievement? You bet it was, and here are some quick stats. First up, the men's race. By my count, 252 runners completed at least one lap of the course. There were 104 bronze pins, 19 silver pins, 2 gold pins, and 127 people who were just happy to be there. But there is a little more to the story. A staggering 49.6% of men made it at least as far as 10 laps. That's a bronze pin. 8.3% made it at least as far as the silver, and just 0.8 made it as far as the gold. You'll be able to see on the chart here how you compared. In terms of the women's race, by my count, 182 runners completed at least one lap. We had 59 bronze pins, 12 silver pins, 1 gold pin, and 110 people just happy to be there. So, how does that break down? Well, 39.6% of women made it at least as far as the 10 laps for the bronze pin, 7.1% at least as far as the silver pin, and 0.5% getting the gold. Overall, I'd say that the results are fairly surprising. 49.6% of men and 39.6% of women achieving a distance of 100 kilometres. For both genders, there is a significant drop-off of runners after the 10-lap mark, so my advice to everyone is push through onto lap 11. There's also some encouraging stats in here for those looking to go to an ultra distance for the first time. The stats show that 92.1% of men and 84.1% of women make it to the 50k mark, widely regarded as the first step to the world of ultra running. Overall, 2023 produced some outstanding results, including 2 new solo course records. So, here are my new updated stats for Equinox 24. My cumulative lap count now tops out at 106 laps. It still seems unbelievable that I've run over 1,000 kilometres around the course at Equinox 24. Then again, seeing the state of my knees these days, and it's starting to make a little more sense. In terms of pins, well, it's good news there. 4 silvers and 4 bronze. And just as a little bonus, my highest finishing rank was this year, and that was 12th in the men's category. I must say that position and ranking comes with huge caveats at any of these races. It really depends who turns up on the day. All you can do is control how far you go in your race. Nobody else matters at the end of the day. All that's left for me to do is to pick up my medal and my finisher's pin. It's always a really nice touch that the race organisers will be there for you at the end of the race. Johnny will be announcing and welcoming the runners home, whilst Laura is typically handing out medals and pins with the rest of the crew. Equinox 24 really is a special event, and it's personal touches like these that have helped keep the spirit of it over the years. There really is so much to enjoy at Equinox 24, from all the volunteers, the facilities, and of course all of the other runners and teams themselves. I do have to give a special shout out to the Marple runners, who were absolutely fantastic on the day. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I would like to thank them for all the support that they showed me in offering me food, drink, and all the moral support on the way round on the course. And this is true of so many of the teams and individuals I've met at Equinox 24 over the years. If you're interested in the Equinox 24 event, I can highly recommend it for so many reasons. There's an excellent community around the group with a very friendly Facebook page. The organisers also run informal live streams to get you up to speed, everything from pins to medals to general information. Equinox 24 really is much more than just a race. And as always, Johnny will be there on the finish line, encouraging runners to complete just one more lap.